A $20 charger almost cost me my life. Thanks, Mom. I'm not being dramatic. I mean it literally. While my appendix was rupturing inside my body, while I was vomiting and turning gray in the back seat of our car, my mother decided that stopping at Best Buy to get my sister a phone charger was more important than taking me to the hospital. She locked me in the car, in a Best Buy parking lot, while my organs were shutting down. And you know what the worst part is? This wasn't even surprising. Because my mom and stepdad have hated me my entire life for one simple reason. I look exactly like my biological father, the man my mother despises more than anyone on this planet. But I fought back. And what happened next changed everything. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand what kind of family I grew up in to believe what I'm about to tell you. My name's Emma, and I've always known I wasn't wanted. It's not something anyone directly said to me when I was little. Kids just know. You feel it in the way your mom looks at you versus how she looks at your sister. You hear it in the tone of voice she uses when she talks to you. You see it in who gets what for their birthday. My mom, Patricia, married my stepdad Rick when I was 4 years old. They had my half-sister Megan a year later. And from the moment Megan was born, I became invisible. Well, not invisible exactly. More like a constant reminder of everything my mom wanted to forget. See, my biological father, his name's David Carter, apparently broke my mom's heart really badly. I don't know the full story because she refuses to talk about it. But whatever happened between them, she never got over it. And I had the unfortunate luck of inheriting his face. Same dark eyes. Same nose. Same jawline. Same dark hair that won't cooperate no matter what I do with it. Every time my mom looked at me, she saw him. And she hated it. Rick was even worse. He treated me like I was some kind of burden in his house. Like I was this annoying kid who came with the package when he married my mom, and he was just tolerating my existence until I turned 18 and moved out. Meanwhile, Megan? Megan was the princess. The golden child who could do no wrong. When she turned 15 last year, they bought her a car. An actual car. For her 15th birthday. She couldn't even legally drive it yet, but there it was, a used Honda Civic with a bow on top, parked in our driveway. You know what I got for my 15th birthday? A $20 gift card to Target. I'm not exaggerating. $20. When I opened it at the kitchen table, Rick said, "Don't spend it all in one place," and laughed like he'd made the funniest joke in the world. My mom didn't even look up from her phone. Megan got the bedroom with the attached bathroom. I got the smallest room in the house that used to be Rick's home office. My furniture was whatever they could find at garage sales or on the side of the road with free signs on it. Every family vacation was the same story. 2 years ago, they took Megan to Disney World for a whole week. Just the 3 of them. They left me with my mom's sister, Aunt Linda, and told me there wasn't enough money for me to come. I found out later they'd spent over $3,000 on that trip. But there wasn't enough money for my plane ticket. Last summer, they went to the beach for 10 days. Again, just the 3 of them. This time they didn't even bother with an excuse. Rick just said, "We need some family bonding time," like I wasn't part of the family. At school, I learned to be invisible there too. I didn't join clubs or sports teams because I knew my mom and Rick would never come to anything anyway. Why bother? My best friend Olivia was the only person who really got it. She'd been to my house enough times to see how they treated me versus Megan. How my mom would cook Megan's favorite meals but tell me we were out of groceries when I asked for something specific. How they'd take Megan to the movies but leave me home alone. Olivia's family wasn't perfect either, but at least her parents treated all their kids the same. She used to tell me that what was happening at my house wasn't normal, that I should tell a teacher or counselor. But I was scared. Scared of foster care. Scared of making things worse. Scared of being the kid who broke up her own family. So I just kept my head down and survived. Told myself I only had 3 more years until I could graduate and get out of there. I had no idea that everything was about to change in the worst way possible. It was a Tuesday. Middle of October. I remember because we'd just gotten our progress reports the day before, and I had straight B's, which was pretty good considering I had 0 help at home with homework. I was sitting in Algebra 2, 3rd period, trying to focus on quadratic equations. Mr. Peterson was writing formulas on the board when I felt it. This sharp, stabbing pain in my lower right abdomen. like someone had stuck a knife in me and was twisting it. I shifted in my seat, thinking maybe I'd just pulled a muscle or something. But the pain didn't go away. It got worse. Within minutes, I was sweating. My forehead felt like it was on fire. I raised my hand. "Mr. Peterson? I need to go to the nurse." He took one look at my face and nodded immediately. "Go ahead. You look terrible." I barely made it to the nurse's office. The school nurse, Mrs. Kim, took my temperature, 101.3, and asked me where it hurt. When I pressed on my lower right side, I almost screamed. She called my house. No answer. Called my mom's cell. No answer. Called Rick's cell. No answer. She gave me Tylenol and made me lie down on the cot in her office. 25 minutes passed. The pain kept getting worse. I could barely think straight. Mrs. Kim called again. Still no answer. Finally, after almost 40 minutes, I remembered the family group chat. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and typed, "I'm sick at school. Need to be picked up. Please hurry." It took another 25 minutes before I got a response from Rick. "We're on our way." When they finally pulled up to the school, I could barely walk. Mrs. Kim had to help me to the car. The moment I opened the back door, I knew something was off. Megan was in the passenger seat, music blasting through the AUX cord. She had this annoyed look on her face, like I just ruined her day. Rick was in the driver's seat, looking equally irritated. My mom twisted around from the front seat, her eyes narrowing in that way they always did when she looked at me. "Why are you out here?" I managed to ask, confused. "We were having a family bonding day," Megan said, beaming like she just won something. "You interrupted it." My mom sneered. "You better not be doing this for attention." I wanted to defend myself, but another wave of pain hit me so hard I doubled over. My skin felt clammy and cold. Every bump in the road sent electricity through my stomach. That's when I threw up. Rick reached back and handed me a grocery bag without even looking, like he'd been expecting it. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "Your father pulled this same dramatic bullshit." Megan's phone pinged. She looked down at the screen and her eyes went wide. "My phone's at 4%. And then it happened. She started crying. Not real crying. The fake, manipulative crying she'd perfected since she was 6 years old. "My phone is dying," she wailed. "Ethan's going to FaceTime me in 15 minutes and he'll think I'm ignoring him. He's going to ask that girl from chemistry to homecoming instead of me." I could feel something inside me getting worse with every second. Something was really, really wrong. "Hospital," I whispered. "Please." My mom and Rick exchanged a look. The same look they'd given me when I begged to come on the Disney trip. The same look they'd given me when I asked why Megan got a car for her 15th birthday but I got a $20 card. "There's a Best Buy right there," my mom said, pointing to the blue sign on our right. "We can just run in real quick and grab her a portable charger." I thought I'd heard her wrong. Despite the pain and nausea, I lifted my head. "What?" "It'll just take a second," she said, already signaling Rick to pull into the parking lot. "Please, no." I barely got the words out. My throat was closing up. Rick glared at me in the rearview mirror. "Stop being theatrical like your father. 5 minutes won't kill you." They didn't hesitate. My mom opened her door. Megan jumped out, still crying about Ethan, and Rick locked all the doors with me inside. Like I was a dog they were leaving in the car while they ran errands. I sat there in the back seat, hunched over, trying not to move because every movement made the pain worse. But then something changed. The sharp, stabbing pain turned into something else. Pressure. Building up with nowhere to go. And then I felt it. Like a water balloon bursting inside me. No relief, just wrongness. Fire spreading from my abdomen up through my chest. I knew what had happened. Your body tells you when something ruptures, even when you're 15 and have no medical training. My appendix had burst. I tried to reach for my phone to call 911, but my hands were shaking too badly. I couldn't unlock the screen. Through the store window, I could see my mom comparing 2 different phone chargers. Megan was looking at phone cases. Rick was checking his watch because the football game started at 3:45, not because he was worried about me. The last thing I remember before blacking out was hearing the car door unlock. "Rick, is she breathing?" My mom's voice. Panicked but fake. The voice she used during parent-teacher conferences. Yeah, barely. But we need to go. I haven't charged my phone yet. The voices faded out again. When I woke up, I was in the ICU. 2 days had passed. I heard my mom's voice in the hallway before I saw her, and immediately I recognized the fake worry. The performance she put on for doctors and teachers and anyone who might judge her. We rushed here the second we realized something was wrong, she was saying to someone. A nurse, probably. We only stopped for 2 minutes because Megan has severe anxiety and needed her medication from the pharmacy. Lies. All lies. The nurse ate it up. You poor things. It must have been terrifying. Then Rick's voice. We've been here every day. Stayed by his bedside. More lies. That's when I realized something important. They were going to get away with this. They were going to rewrite what happened, make themselves look like concerned parents, and nobody would ever know the truth. Unless I did something about it. My phone was on the table next to my bed. I picked it up with shaking hands. The pain medication was making everything fuzzy, but I needed to do this while I still could. I opened the family group chat and typed, "Thank you for saving my life, Mom." But I didn't send it to the family chat. 5 months earlier, I'd found my biological father's phone number on my mom's old phone. She'd kept it saved under, "Do not answer." I'd secretly added it to my contacts under a fake name just in case I ever needed it. I pulled up that contact now and typed a different message. I almost died because Mom wouldn't take me to the hospital. I'm in the ICU now. Please help. I hit send. The message turned blue. And then my eyelids got too heavy and everything went black again. When I woke up again, the room was dark except for one yellow light over the sink. A guy in dark blue scrubs was checking the equipment next to my bed. His name tag said, Lucas. He looked young, maybe mid-20s, with kind eyes. He noticed me watching him and smiled. Hey, you're awake. How are you feeling? Most people ask that as a greeting without actually expecting an answer. But Lucas stood there waiting, looking at me like my answer actually mattered. Everything hurts, I said. My voice came out hoarse and weak. And I'm scared to go home. His expression changed immediately. Not surprised. More like something clicked into place. He pulled up the chair next to my bed and sat down at eye level. Can I ask you some questions about that? I nodded. My throat was tight, but I needed someone to know. The hospital takes patient safety really seriously, Lucas said quietly. Would it be okay if I arranged for a social worker to come talk to you? Just to make sure you're safe and that all your needs are being met. The relief was so overwhelming I almost started crying again. Someone cared enough to actually do something. Yes, I said. Please. Lucas squeezed my hand briefly before standing up and typing something on his iPad. I'm putting in that request right now. Someone will come see you first thing tomorrow morning. He checked my phone and adjusted something that made the pain in my stomach ease up a bit. Try to get some rest, okay? I'll be here all night if you need anything. I fell asleep feeling safer than I had in years. The next morning, a woman with dark hair pulled back in a bun came into my room with a tablet and a kind smile. She sat down in the chair next to my bed, her badge reading, Angela Moore, Social Services. Good morning. My name's Angela, she said. Her voice was warm and professional, the kind that made you feel like you could tell her anything. The nursing staff asked me to come check on you and see how you're doing. Can you tell me what happened before you came to the hospital? So I told her everything. About texting the family group chat when the pain started in math class. About waiting 25 minutes to get picked up. About Rick asking if I was skipping school. About Megan's phone dying and my mom deciding to stop at Best Buy for a charger while I was throwing up in the back seat. About them locking me in the car while they shopped. About feeling my appendix burst and not being able to call for help. Angela stayed calm and professional the whole time, but her fingers were moving quickly across her tablet, taking notes on everything I said. When I finished, she looked up at me with gentle eyes. The medical staff documented your condition when you arrived. You were in critical sepsis from a ruptured appendix, which means treatment was significantly delayed. She paused before asking the important question. Would you feel safe going home? God, it hurt to want to say no. But I also knew what happened to kids who said home wasn't safe. Foster care. Maybe forced family therapy where my mom would blame me for everything and make my life even worse. I don't know, I finally said, which was honest. Angela nodded like that answer was good enough. I'm going to include this information in my assessment. Your medical team and I will work together to figure out the best plan going forward. She stood up but left her business card on my bedside table. If you need anything, or if you remember anything else you want to tell me, you can call that number anytime. Day or night. After she left, I checked my phone. The contact I'd saved as Dave, but was actually my bio dad, David Carter, had texted me back. I'm driving there now. 3 states, but I'll be there by tomorrow morning. Are you okay? Please tell me you're safe. I started crying and couldn't stop. Someone who barely knew me, who my mom had kept away from me my whole life, was dropping everything and driving through the night to get to me. Meanwhile, my mom was probably at home watching cooking shows and complaining about how I'd ruined her week. I cried so hard that another nurse came in and asked if I was in pain. I shook my head because I couldn't explain that these were relief tears, the kind that come when you realize you're not completely alone in the world. I heard my mom's fake nice voice in the hallway that afternoon before I saw her. That sugary tone she used with teachers and doctors, the one that made everyone think she was Mother of the Year. Rick's deeper voice rumbled behind her. Megan trailed after them, eyes glued to her phone like always. My mom walked in wearing her worried parent face, eyebrows pulled together, lips turned down in concern. But when she saw Angela's business card sitting on my bedside table, everything changed. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes went hard. She picked up the card and stared at me with that look I knew so well. The look that said I'd done something wrong just by existing. What's this about? She tried to sound casual, but her voice had an edge to it. Rick crossed his arms behind her, looking annoyed. I kept my face neutral and my voice even. The social worker is helping coordinate my discharge care, making sure I have everything I need when I leave the hospital. It wasn't a lie. Just not the whole truth. Rick's jaw clenched. A muscle in his cheek twitched. A nurse walked by, glancing into the room, so my mom couldn't react the way she wanted to. Instead, she forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes and sat down in the chair Angela had used earlier. Well, that's good. We just want you taken care of. Megan never looked up from her phone. She stood by the door, thumbs scrolling, clearly wishing she was anywhere else. I wondered if Ethan had called her for that FaceTime, or if she even cared that I'd been dying in a parking lot while she shopped for phone cases. They didn't stay long. My mom kept checking her watch. Rick kept sighing like he had somewhere better to be. But that evening, Dr. Hayes came in. He was the surgeon who'd operated on me. Tall, with gray at his temples and tired eyes from too many emergency surgeries. He looked at my chart on the computer, reading through my recovery notes mostly to himself. Then he said something that made the whole room freeze. The surgical notes indicate that your appendix had been ruptured for at least 2.5 hours before you arrived at the hospital. He looked up from the screen, his eyes moving between me and my parents. How long were you experiencing symptoms before you came in? This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for since I woke up and heard my mom lying to the nurses in the hallway. I spoke clearly and calmly, making sure every word was accurate. I texted them from school when the pain started. It took 25 minutes for them to pick me up. I asked to go to the hospital, but we stopped at Best Buy first because Megan needed a phone charger. They locked me in the car while they went shopping. That's when my appendix ruptured. I watched my mom's face drain of color, then flush red with anger. Rick's hands were balled into fists at his sides. Even Megan looked up from her phone, her eyes wide. Dr. Hayes' expression didn't change, but his eyes did. He typed for a long time on my chart. I'll be coordinating with social services regarding your case, he said, still typing. He left without saying anything else to my parents. The silence after he walked out felt alive and dangerous. My mom opened her mouth to say something, but another nurse came in to check my vitals, cutting her off. Rick pulled my mom toward the door, muttering something about needing coffee. Megan followed without a word. But she glanced back at me before leaving, and for just a second, her face changed. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. I couldn't tell. After they left, I was alone with the beeping machines and my racing heart and the knowledge that I just started something I couldn't take back. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept counting the little holes in the ceiling tiles, trying to distract myself from everything running through my head. The pain medication made my body feel heavy, but my brain wouldn't shut off. Around 8:30 p.m., Lucas came back for his night shift. He checked my vitals quietly, adjusting things on the machines and making notes on his iPad. When he was done, he sat down in the chair next to my bed like he had something important to say. He told me he'd talked to the other nurses and doctors, that they'd all noted the delay in getting me to the hospital in my file, that the ER staff had documented exactly how critical my condition was when I arrived, how bad the infection was, how close I'd come to dying. His voice was calm and professional, but his eyes were sad when he said that a lot of people were concerned about me. He said that in cases like mine, where a child was harmed, the medical staff documented everything. Every detail. Every timeline. Every inconsistency in the parent's story. My throat got tight when he said that. He told me I had people looking out for me now, making sure I was safe. That mattered more than I probably realized. He squeezed my shoulder gently before going back to the nurse's station. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mom comparing phone chargers while my appendix was bursting. I kept checking my phone for updates from David, but there was nothing new. I started worrying that maybe he wouldn't actually come. That maybe he'd decide I wasn't worth the trouble, just like my mom always said. Morning came slowly. The sky outside my window went from black to gray to pale blue. Around 6:30, a nurse brought me breakfast that I couldn't eat because my stomach was still messed up from the surgery. I was picking at some plain toast when I heard voices in the hallway. The door opened. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that was going gray at the sides. His clothes were wrinkled and he looked exhausted from driving all night. But his face. It was like looking in a mirror 20 years from now. Same nose. Same jawline. Same dark eyes that my mom always said made her sick to look at. He stood in the doorway for a second, just staring at me with tears in his eyes. Then he crossed the room in 3 long steps and hugged me carefully, avoiding all the tubes and wires. "Are you okay?" His voice was shaking, but I was crying too hard to answer. He pulled back to look at me, his hands trembling. He smelled like coffee and highways and exhaustion. "I'm so sorry," he kept saying. "I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm so sorry I didn't know how bad things were. I'm so sorry for all the lost time." We talked for almost 2 hours. He pulled the chair up next to my bed and held my hand while he explained everything. He told me about how he and my mom met in college. How things fell apart after I was born. How she blamed him for everything that went wrong in her life. He said she'd filed for full custody, claiming he was dangerous and that he'd hurt her. None of it was true, but she had a good lawyer. The court gave her custody, and he got supervised visits once a month. Then when I was 4, she moved 3 states away without telling him. By the time he found out where we'd gone, she'd filed paperwork claiming he'd abandoned me. The new court terminated his rights. He showed me bank statements on his phone. 15 years of child support payments going through the state system. My chest felt like it was caving in. All those years, my mom told me he never paid. That he didn't care enough to even send money. She'd been lying the entire time. She'd bought Megan a car with my child support money. She'd taken family vacations and left me behind with food money that she said came from her paycheck. I stared at those bank statements and realized my entire life had been built on lies. David also showed me letters. Hundreds of letters he'd sent to my mom asking to see me. She never responded to a single one. He'd hired lawyers twice to try to get his visitation rights reinstated, but without proof that she was lying, the courts wouldn't help. "Finding you felt like getting back a piece of myself I thought was gone forever," he said, his voice breaking. Angela came back mid-morning. She asked to speak with David privately. They left, and I sat alone for 35 minutes that felt like hours. I could hear their voices in the hallway sometimes, serious and quiet. When they came back, David was standing differently. Taller. His jaw set with determination. Angela sat down and explained calmly that she and David had been discussing my options for housing after discharge. She had serious concerns about the delay in my medical treatment and about my safety at home. She was recommending that I not return to my mom's house right away. David had agreed to stay in town. She was going to petition to make him my temporary guardian during recovery. She mentioned home evaluations, CPS involvement, family court. Each phrase felt like another brick in a wall being built between me and my mom. Angela said a CPS investigator would interview everyone at my mom's house. That these things took time, but she'd make sure I stayed safe while everything got sorted out. David squeezed my hand again. I held on tight. My mom came to visit that afternoon and found David sitting next to my hospital bed. I watched her face go through about 5 different expressions in 2 seconds. Shock, fury, recognition, and then that fake nice smile she put on when other people were watching. "What are you doing here?" she asked in a pleasant voice that didn't match the look in her eyes. David stood up. "I'm visiting my daughter." "You have no rights," my mom said, her fake smile cracking. "You abandoned her. You can't just show up now." "I have bank statements proving I've been paying child support for 15 years, David said, his voice steady and calm. My mom's face went red. "You're a liar. The courts terminated your rights. I'm calling security." 2 security guards showed up then. But not to remove David. They asked if everyone could please step into a private conference room to discuss things away from the patients. My mom looked like she wanted to argue, but the guards weren't asking. They were telling. They took both my parents away, leaving me alone with Rick and Megan. The silence was uncomfortable and heavy. Rick stood by the window with his arms crossed, not looking at me. Megan stayed by the door, thumb still scrolling on her phone, but she glanced up once and our eyes met. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. She said it without looking up from her phone, and I wasn't sure if she meant sorry for the Best Buy stop or sorry for 15 years of me being treated like garbage. Maybe both. Maybe neither. Rick didn't say anything at all. David stayed at a hotel nearby and visited every day during approved hours. For 2 days, the doctors monitored my incision carefully, doing blood tests to make sure the infection was clearing. On the 3rd day, Dr. Hayes said I was healing well enough to be discharged. He gave me a long list of instructions. Keep the incision clean and dry, watch for signs of infection, no strenuous activity, no heavy lifting, no gym class for at least 3 weeks. He prescribed pain medication and antibiotics and talked about diet, starting with small, bland meals and gradually adding foods back in. Angela came in with discharge papers and a plan. She'd been coordinating with David and the hospital social workers. Instead of going home to my mom's house, I was going to stay at David's hotel. It was supposed to be about post-surgery care and monitoring recovery, but we all knew what it really was: keeping me away from my mom. My mom objected immediately and loudly when she found out. She showed up while I was getting ready to leave and threatened legal action. She said she was going to sue the hospital, call the police, because David had no custody rights. David stayed calm. When he explained that he'd been paying child support for 15 years without visitation, that he had legitimate concerns about my safety, and that the hospital social worker's report supported his position, his voice was steady and reasonable. He said the medical documentation showing the treatment delay was clear, and she should talk to her lawyer before making threats. My mom turned purple. She looked like she might actually hit him. A nurse warned her that she needed to leave or security would be involved. Rick steered her toward the door while she yelled about how this wasn't over, how she'd fight this, how I'd been manipulated. David handed me clothes, and from the side of the bed, I watched my mother leave the hospital crying fake tears. Megan followed behind them, staring at the floor. The hotel room David had rented was simple but clean. 2 double beds with blue comforters, a small table by the window, a TV mounted on the wall. That morning, he'd stocked the mini fridge with ginger ale, crackers, and plain bread that Angela said would be gentle on my stomach. He propped pillows behind me and made sure I was comfortable on the bed closest to the bathroom. He set up all my medications on the nightstand, putting alarms on his phone to remind us when I needed to take each dose. He gave me the TV remote and told me I could watch whatever I wanted. We ended up watching some cooking competition show that neither of us really cared about, but it didn't matter. What mattered was him asking me every 20 minutes if I needed anything, if I was in pain, if I was hungry. What mattered was him getting up to buy more ginger ale without me having to ask. What mattered was how he adjusted my pillows whenever I shifted to get more comfortable. For the first time in 15 years, I was being treated like I mattered. I fell asleep that afternoon feeling safer than I'd ever felt at home. Olivia came to visit that night, bringing a backpack full of schoolwork and gossip from school. She was nervous meeting my biological father for the first time, but David made her feel welcome immediately, shaking her hand and thanking her for being such a good friend to me. I sat in bed with my laptop open, trying to catch up on English class reading. Olivia sat on the other bed, pulling out folders and papers, explaining what I'd missed in each class. She stopped mid-sentence and looked at David, who was adjusting my pillows again. Olivia leaned closer and whispered, "Is this your dad?" When I nodded, Olivia's face broke into a huge smile. "It's about time you caught a break." David ordered pizza while they visited, asking Olivia what toppings she liked, and for 2 hours, they ate pizza while I ate bland food. Olivia kept me updated on all the school drama, treating the situation like it was normal. Like having my bio dad suddenly in my life wasn't this huge weird thing. Her casual acceptance of everything made it feel more real and less terrifying. Over the next several days, I kept a journal like Angela suggested. She said it would help if there were ever questions about my care later. I documented everything David did. How he checked my incision twice a day for redness, swelling, or signs of infection. How he never let me miss a dose of my medication, even when I felt okay. How he made me eat small bland meals every few hours because the doctor had ordered it, even though the food was boring. How he kept asking how I was feeling, if I needed anything, if the pain was getting worse. He did my laundry at the hotel laundromat. Bought me new clothes because everything my mom had packed for the hospital was either too small or falling apart. He set up tutoring so I wouldn't fall behind in school. He found the best follow-up doctors in the area and scheduled all my appointments. Reading back through those journal entries, I could see exactly what Angela had wanted me to see. The difference between neglect and real parenting, documented in my own words that nobody could dispute. A week after I left the hospital, a big envelope arrived at the hotel addressed to David. He opened it at the small desk while I was working on homework on my bed. His jaw tightened as he read. It was a formal demand letter from my mom's lawyer, insisting that I be returned home immediately, claiming David had no legal right to keep me. That afternoon, David made 3 phone calls. His lawyer asking the hospital for copies of my complete medical records. Angela writing up a formal report about her concerns. Filing an emergency petition with family court for a custody modification. 2 days later, another letter arrived. This one had a court seal on it. The court had scheduled a temporary hearing in 10 days to determine where I should live while the full custody case was decided. David handed me the letter and asked if this was what I wanted, to take my mother to court. I looked around at everything, the journal documenting my recovery, the pill bottles lined up neatly, the mini fridge full of safe foods for my healing stomach. Then I looked at him and said, "Yes." The custody hearing was 4 weeks after the Best Buy incident. David drove us to the courthouse, where my grandparents, people I'd never met before, were waiting in the parking lot to support us. My mom, Rick, and their lawyer sat at a table on the right side of the courtroom. David and I sat on the left. Megan was waiting in the hallway to testify. The judge was a woman in her 50s with tight gray hair and reading glasses on a chain. She looked at me as David's lawyer called my name, and I walked up to the witness stand. I told the judge everything. The stabbing pain in math class. Texting the family group chat. Waiting 25 minutes for pickup. Throwing up in the car. Begging to go to the hospital. My mom deciding to stop at Best Buy instead. Being locked in the car while they shopped for a phone charger. Feeling my appendix burst while I watched them through the store window comparing products. Blacking out. Waking up in the ICU 2 days later. The lawyer asked me about how my family had treated me compared to Megan. I told them about the Disney vacation I wasn't invited to. The car Megan got for her 15th birthday while I got a $20 card. How my mom always looked at me like I disgusted her. How Rick called me dramatic when I was sick or hurt. The judge took notes and asked me directly if I felt safe with David. I said yes without hesitation. She asked if I wanted to visit my mom. I said no. My mom's lawyer tried to make me sound like I was being overdramatic, but my medical records spoke for themselves. They showed exactly how sick I'd been. When I stepped down, my legs were shaking so badly I had to grab the railing to steady myself. Megan testified next. She started crying before the lawyer even asked her a question. She described the Best Buy stop in detail. How I was throwing up. How my skin looked gray. How I begged them to go straight to the hospital. How my mom said it would just take a second to grab a charger. How long they actually stayed in there. When the lawyer asked if our parents treated us differently, Megan said yes. She talked about getting a car while I didn't. Family trips I wasn't included in. How my mom and Rick always made me feel like a burden while she was treated like the favorite. She said they treated me badly because I looked like David, who my mom hated. She was crying the whole time, and I could see my mom glaring at her from across the courtroom with a look that would have made Megan crumble before all this. But Megan kept talking. She said she was sorry she didn't speak up sooner. That she should have called an ambulance that day. After she finished, my mom's lawyer tried to make Megan sound like a dramatic teenager, but the judge didn't look convinced. Dr. Hayes testified after lunch. He brought my complete medical file and described my condition in the emergency room. Critical sepsis from a ruptured appendix, severe dehydration, dangerously high fever, blood pressure dropping. He said another 20 minutes might have been fatal. The lawyer pointed out that my appendix had been ruptured for at least 2.5 hours before I arrived at the hospital based on the infection levels. He described the emergency surgery. The 2 days I spent in a coma. Then he talked about the effects of delaying treatment. He said that stopping for a phone charger when a child is experiencing a medical emergency showed complete disregard for my safety. My mom's lawyer tried to argue that they didn't realize how serious it was. But Dr. Hayes shut that down immediately. He said I was vomiting, sweating, gray-skinned, and in obvious severe pain. Any reasonable adult would have gone straight to the hospital, he said. The judge asked if the delay was medically justifiable. Dr. Hayes said, "Absolutely not." Angela testified next with a thick folder of documentation. She talked about how hospital staff had raised concerns about my family's behavior during my ICU stay. How my mom and Rick lied about being there constantly when they'd only visited twice. How they lied about the pharmacy stop. How I'd expressed fear about going home. She compared my mom's care with David's care during my recovery. How David had followed every doctor's order exactly. Checked my wound twice daily. Made sure I took medications on time. Kept detailed notes about my symptoms and healing progress. Took me to every follow-up appointment without fail. She said I'd gained weight and my stress indicators had improved since leaving my mom's house. When the lawyer asked for her professional opinion, Angela said I'd experienced medical neglect that endangered my life, and ongoing emotional abuse through differential treatment. She recommended I not return to my mom's house. My mom's lawyer argued that this was one mistake. An isolated incident of poor judgment under stress, not a pattern of abuse. But David's lawyer presented medical documentation showing I'd been underweight and malnourished. School counselor reports about my declining well-being. Social work documentation of unequal treatment. Megan's testimony about years of favoritism. The judge reviewed everything carefully for what felt like forever. Then she spoke. She said the evidence showed a pattern of long-term neglect, and the Best Buy incident was just the most extreme example. She granted David temporary custody for 6 months, with supervised visitation for my mom. She ordered family therapy for my mom, Rick, and Megan. Individual therapy for me. Another hearing in 6 months to reassess the situation. My mom shot up from her chair so fast it scraped across the floor. She left without looking at me. Rick followed. Megan sat there for a moment looking confused, then slowly stood up. David squeezed my shoulder. I realized I was crying. Relief tears. That weekend, David and I drove 3 states back to his house. The trip took 5.5 hours with stops for lunch and bathroom breaks. When we pulled into his driveway, I saw a small 3-bedroom house with white siding and a big yard. David walked me down the hallway to the 3rd bedroom and opened the door. I just stood there staring. There was a new bed with a blue comforter. A desk with a lamp and a cup full of pens. A bookshelf against one wall. Curtains on the window. A rug on the floor. Everything was new. Clean. Set up just for me. I'd never had a room that felt like someone actually wanted me to be comfortable in it. I started crying again. David hugged me while I sobbed into his shoulder. "This is your room," he said softly. "You can decorate it however you want. Make it yours." I couldn't speak. Just nodded against his shoulder. Starting at a new school 5 weeks into the semester felt weird. Everyone already had their friend groups and inside jokes, and I was just the random new girl who showed up in October. But I didn't care. I was so relieved to be away from my old life that the awkwardness didn't even matter. Olivia texted me every single day and sent pictures of our old school. She promised to visit during spring break. My teachers were understanding. The principal knew I was recovering from major surgery and dealing with a family situation, so they gave me extensions on assignments and let me leave class if I needed to. I started therapy in my second week at the new school. David found me a counselor who specialized in family trauma. Her office was downtown, with comfortable chairs and boxes of tissues on every table. She asked me to tell her my story. So I did. All of it. The years of being ignored. The appendix rupturing. The best buy stop. Everything. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she said something powerful. She said my mother's issues with David were never my fault. That I shouldn't have been punished for looking like him. That the neglect I experienced was abuse, even if it wasn't physical. Weekly sessions helped me work through the anger and hurt. It was hard work. Some sessions left me feeling worse. But gradually, I started feeling less angry and more at peace. Like maybe I could move forward instead of staying stuck in all those terrible years. 6 months after the custody hearing, we went back to court. This time, my mom didn't contest anything. Her lawyer submitted paperwork agreeing to David having full custody. The judge made it official. David was now my legal guardian with full custody. My mom could request supervised visits if she continued therapy and showed improvement, but I wasn't required to see her. I haven't seen her since. Megan and I text sometimes. She's at college now, 7 hours away from home. She's in therapy too, working through everything. We're slowly building something that might become an actual sisterhood someday, but we're taking it slow. David and I have our own routines now. Pizza and movies on Friday nights. Chocolate chip pancakes on Sunday mornings. Evening walks with his dog around the neighborhood. Simple things that mean more than grand gestures because they're consistent and real. I'm a senior now. I made honor roll last semester. I'm applying to colleges with David's help. My guidance counselor thinks I have a good shot at several schools with decent financial aid. I still have the journal I kept during my recovery. Sometimes I flip through it and read my own words about those first weeks with David. It reminds me how far I've come. I also kept Angela's business card. Sometimes I think about becoming a social worker like her. Someone who fights for kids who can't fight for themselves. Because that's what this whole story is really about. Fighting for yourself when nobody else will. A $20 phone charger almost cost me my life. But it also gave me a real family for the first time. So yeah, thanks, Mom. Not for what you did, but for showing me I was strong enough to save myself. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. It's still hard to talk about sometimes, but sharing it helps. Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts. Have you ever had to fight for yourself when the people who were supposed to protect you failed you? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories like this one.